Where are? Thank you, Fran. If that was Fran.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
And Erica, we'll with Eric in a moment, but for all of us here, contribute here, but you can. Here, let me start with
Steve, you're frozen and your audio keeps clipping.
We may be losing him.
The power of silence.
I think we lost Steve there for a moment, so hang in there.
Yeah, I just texted him, let him make sure he knew.
Thank you.
The quietest this group has ever been, I think.
I know. Waiting on the edge of our seats. There he is.
sorry. Yeah, I had to go to an alternate. I had to go to 5G. Much better. Sorry, everybody. Okay, so let me go to the polling question here. And let me go to the polls and let me see if I can get this done again. Sorry, everybody. So here's the poll. Regarding factors that influences your decision to attend Enterprise Connect, please rank the following in order of importance. Select your top two. Topical networking with peers, exhibiting companies expo hall, keynote speakers, conference speakers, networking reception, and conference tracks, and other. Does everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yep, if everybody can vote, I'd appreciate it. And I'm not seeing, oh, here we go. And Eric, I'd be glad to share this with you post.
Oh, thanks, Steve.
Sure, no problem. So Eric, you're in where, Chicago today, Florida?
I am in Chicago.
Okay, great.
Got back just for the weekend, and it was a little chillier here, but we're supposed to be in the 70s by the weekend.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, because I was going to say you still needed a coat where you did in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks everybody, and let me just share the results here. So, interestingly, come on. Okay, that number two, exhibiting companies and topical networking with peers was the most important, and no one voted on keynotes, which was very interesting. Anybody want to share what another might have been? Okay.
Yeah, there wasn't a choice to not attend. You know, I wasn't at it.
Yeah, Dave.
Location.
Oh, location. Okay. Here, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Here's the second question. What specifically would you tell a business colleague or friend when recommending? It's kind of a same question, but a little bit differently. Lead gen opportunities, networking with colleagues, industry trends, and what's hot, education, vendor briefings, or other. Please vote. And Fran, you're in Colorado today, right? You made it back okay?
I did.
Okay.
Gorgeous here.
Okay. Yeah, and Fran and I have a running joke. We call her Fran from FOCO. Or Fort Collins for short. Okay, let me end this poll. And thanks everybody. Let me share the results. So you see that networking with colleagues is far outweighs the rest. And then we got vendor briefings followed by industry trends and what's hot, lead gen opportunities and education. Thanks, everybody. So let me stop the share. And just one more regarding Las Vegas next year. So on a scale of 1 to 5, what is your opinion on Enterprise Connect 2026 in Las Vegas? And Eric will give us a briefing on that in a little while, but very excited, indifferent. We'll miss Orlando. We'll really miss Orlando. Anybody? Please vote.
You needed to let us pick more than one, right? So on this one.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to be negative on Las Vegas, so I just said we'll miss Orlando there, Kevin.
No, because I'm excited, but I wanted to pick I'm excited, but I
Yeah,
will
both,
miss
yeah.
it, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. Myself too. Well, thanks everybody for voting, and let me just share the results. So it shows that most are excited, followed by indifferent, and we'll definitely miss Orlando, etc. So thanks everybody for helping there with the poll. And let me continue a big thank you to Eric Hansen, CMO of Mitel. He shared with us what was going on in their Chapter 11. We had a great briefing 2 weeks ago, and it was actually on the day after that they had filed for Chapter 11, and they had already received approval from the judge to go ahead and process. And a lot of it was driven by a prepackaged what they call it prepackaged Chapter 11, and they're expecting to be in Chapter 11 just less than 90 days. It was extremely educational. It was not recorded because of some sensitivities, but we were honored to have Eric on and to share with us exactly what's going on their end. A quick quote here: television won't be able to hold on to any market it captures after the first 6 months. People will soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night. And this was from Daryl Zanuck, the film producer, 20th Century Fox in 1946. Obviously was kind of slighted towards the big screen. So again, this is this week takeaways and highlights from Enterprise Connect. And we are continuing with our membership drive. Fran was able to meet with a number of vendors and consultants, along with Bill Magnuson and Art Yanamoto and Barb Grothy, and many others who were helping to be at the SCTC booth. And Eric, a big thank you to having us have a booth there. And it was great to have additional size this year. We really appreciate that. So those leads are coming in with Fran, and we are expanding, advancing every day. And again, the winner for the contest, which ends in June, will get a $795 value free pass to the fall conference in Reno, Nevada. So Dave Clardy, over to you.
Well, welcome back to reality, as we say, and back to the grind. But I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed getting to see all of my colleagues from our respective consultant relations, and most importantly, being able to spend some quality time with all the analysts and consultants that attend this event. I for one, I'm looking forward to Vegas. I think change is good. It's good for the soul sometimes, and changing up the venue can make it more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But just many thanks to everyone on this call who interacted, and we all work together as one and try not to step on each other, etc. But it was great. It was great to see everyone. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Dave. And one of my personal takeaways was that there were obviously a number of vendors there this year. There were customers, of course, but if I were a vendor, I'd want to see who my competition was and what they were doing, which is definitely a venue for that. So, which was very helpful. So, Mike, over to you, our president.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Glad everybody's here. Eric, I just want to thank you for the booth at Enterprise Connect. Thank you very much. I think everybody enjoyed themselves. For everybody else, look for the announcement for call for speakers for the annual conference. We're getting a pretty exciting lineup going, and so please put that on your calendar, October 12th through the 15th. And take it back, Steve.
All right, Mike, well, thank you. And let me stop the share now. And Eric, if it's all right with you, let me start with yourself. So what was your personal takeaway, as well as maybe giving us a hint at, Las Vegas, and what's the story behind that, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. And again, thanks everybody for being such good friends to the event. And I'm glad everybody had a good time last week. So, and I'm interested to hear everybody's kind of take on what their takeaway was. We've kind of obviously AI is the topic that kind of overhangs everything. And we did see definitely that some of our better attended sessions were AI sessions this year. So I think it's, and what we heard on the stage, particularly from some of the enterprise people, like we had a gentleman from the Hartford and another from Advent Health on one of the panels. We had an all enterprise panel that was Werner, which is a trucking firm, deputy CIO for the city of Phoenix, CIO for AAA in the Northeast, and a gentleman from a smallish radiology company, a CIO of that. And I think across the board, we we were hearing enterprise people say they're starting to see pickup for AI applications for the Copilot or Zoom Assistant or Zoom Companion. But again, I think it's still very much a kind of, they're proceeding with caution. They're not, they're not sure about the business case. And there's a lot of we also had one of our most popular breakout sessions. Multiple people came up to me and said it was worth the cost of the ticket. Was we had a couple guys from Fannie Mae, the loan financiers, give a talk about their it's been going on since like fall of 23, their pilot and adoption of Microsoft Copilot. And they, they're kind of their takeaways for that they gave to the audience were kind of like, it's got value, but you have to manage the licenses really closely. You have to, um, you know, train the end users. I think that was another thing that we heard almost everywhere was, you can't just roll the thing out and leave people hanging. It's an extensive process. Um, some of the other takeaways I had, we had still some great attendance, like Steve, the session you did on staying on prem, and some of the discussion we had in the lock note. I think one of the things I'm taking into the planning for the 2026 program, which I've started on this week, is to really be a little bit more intentional and focused around that segment of the audience, and trying to help people who are still maybe um, a little further back in the curve in terms of moving to the cloud or deciding whether to move the cloud or not. Um, and so, I think that's definitely, there's obviously, the critical thing is strategy for the future and that, but I think that there's a lot of our audience that needs and would like to stay current on just the ways that they can continue to save money and get the most out of their legacy infrastructure and legacy needs, and then move those when the time is right.
Well said. Well said.
As far as Vegas goes, if I have a couple more
Yeah.
minutes to
No,
just
go ahead. Oh, yep.
So March 10th through 12th, 2026 is our Enterprise Connect 2026 in Las Vegas. We're at the Caesars Forum Convention Center, which is actually it's not actually, I'm not sure it's even close to Caesar's Palace compared to other things. It's most close to the Venetian, if you're kind of familiar at all with your geography on the strip, and it's purely a convention center. There's not like a casino hanging off it or anything like that. But it's a beautiful facility. It was just opened in 2020, so it's only 5 years old. Great, great facilities for our sponsors and attendees, and a great space for us. We're going to be able to have everything kind of all contiguous, like on the same floor. It's Vegas, so the distances are still large, but we're going to have like there'll be the expo hall, and next to that will be the where the breakout sessions are, and the keynotes will be kind of on the other side, and there'll be meeting rooms kind of around the outside of these big rooms. So it's going to be hopefully a lot easier to kind of get around and move from expo hall to conference and back and forth and such. The other things that I didn't respond to the poll because I didn't think I should, but I would have said very excited about moving to Vegas, because I think as I'm forgetting who on the call said this, and maybe it was Dave. Change is good, and we had 20 great years in Orlando, but I think we really want to shake the show up and would love feedback from anybody on this call who wants to tell us, with the opportunity to basically pull the whole thing apart, start with a almost clean slate. What should be different? What should we just not do anymore that we were doing? And what haven't we been doing that you've seen at other shows or that you do at your own annual show that works great? But I think the other things that we think are going to really help are just kind of the date pattern itself. We were locked into this Monday through midday Thursday thing at the Gaylord Palms. We really didn't have much flexibility. Next year, we're going to be Tuesday through Thursday. And so it's going to be all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, all day Thursday. Show floor will be open through the end of Thursday. But we don't, we start at 8 o'clock on Tuesday. So audience and a lot of people won't have to travel in on the weekend. You can come in on Monday. A lot of people have said, they like to be able to stay over in Vegas and do a weekend there. They'll be able to do that. But so we think it'll be a lot more just kind of some of those nuts and bolts will be kind of a little more attendee friendly and make it a little easier just to go to the show. We're looking at different ways to do passes and pricing and try to figure out what makes sense in terms of having a little different levels of ways that people can participate.
Excellent. So it being a different venue and a convention center only, unlike the hotel that we've been at for 20 years. So what's your vision on the private one-on-one type meetings? Like there was a lot of, vendors. I had, private meetings with Zoom, with Mitel, with others, of course, where, they rented a private room or a suite, and had, briefings with lunches and all that. So what are your thoughts there? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, they're there, and it's a great point, and it's been one of the great things at the Gaylord. There are meeting rooms built into the configuration that we have, and so there will be a few dozen of those that sponsors will be able to take. But I mean, certainly to the point, a number of companies when we were at the Gaylord Palms would rent like a suite in the hotel and do their meetings there, and it's a little bit of a schlep, but it's not super far. The nearest hotel is still going to be a bigger hike next year. So, I think what we're thinking going in is, we did a few of those kind of and Dave Mitel did one of the kind of build out meeting rooms. And I think our one of the things we're looking at is, can we do almost like a village of those so that we may have some big spaces available to us that currently are not sort of part of our configuration, that we may be able to get and just kind of have some meeting rooms that are handy so that people don't have to take long walks and be close to where everything else is. But all that stuff we're going to start on soon, but that's I think that's our thinking. It's a need that we're definitely very conscious of because we know it's important for the sponsors.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And just, for the attendees as well, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, just in retrospect, I thought, it was a great show as always, Eric. I think, people who were there for most of it, got a lot out of it. I don't know why, but for me, it was just such a great year. Probably one of the best years for me personally, networking and just meeting folks that I hadn't seen in a while. And all of a sudden they're, at SVP level and they were director 2 years ago. And they moved from company A to B and, had some one-on-ones there. And, yeah, it was just, and just that the whole aura of the event was very, very positive, my sense. So let me pick on Kevin here to start. Kevin Keeler, I know you have at least one thought.
Yeah. Just to build on a comment that you made, Eric, this is more about the programming piece. I would say, like in the lock note, the people that, you talked about people being further behind because they're still on-prem as opposed to moving to the cloud. I think it's actually broader than that, and it's more, kind of hybrid. So I think actually some of the people that are moving some of the workloads back to on-prem for cost optimization or data, residency, I think they may actually be ahead of the curve, right? So I think that, focusing on hybrid and optimizing, I think a lot of people are looking to that, before everybody would move to the cloud. And I think we're realizing, some workloads might be in different places. But yeah, no, a fantastic event. Had a lot of discussion with a whole bunch of different analyst groups. And of course, both there, of course, because for me, it's all about the people, it's meeting the vendors, it's having all the vendors with different points of view in the same place. And I think, Steve, you said, it's great for the vendors to go see their competition. I still contend a lot of vendors don't seem to do that because they announce something like, wow, look at this, we're the first to do this. And you're like, did you look 2 booths down, right? Or did you, and the vendors don't actually go to the other vendors' keynotes, has been my observation, which they really should. So I think
Absolutely.
that would be something to play up to the potential sponsors, right? But a couple of things that have come up, and they haven't necessarily been my ideas, but I thought that they were good, so I just wanted to communicate them back to you. There's been people that have been talked about how at a lot of events, the attendees don't pay a lot. They pay a very minimal bit, and then the sponsors are kind of covering it. So, I do know there's lots of discounts and early bird passes and whatever, but trying to drive more end users, although for the 15 years I've been there, the sponsors have always said there's not enough end users because I don't think there could ever be enough for them, which kind of makes sense. So I think that, when you look into the pricing of the passes, I think it's increasingly hard for end users to justify the travel and conference costs because A, there's a lot of conferences, and B, I think a lot of organizations said, hey, during COVID, you seem to be able to learn remotely. And so they have a harder time getting the budgetary approval for that. And kind of, building on that, I think if there's an opportunity to, at a very minimum, do an audio recording of all sessions, but ideally do video for all sessions and support some kind of hybrid virtual pass. I think the sponsors would like that because they would, their content could be seen by more people. And certainly, having video recordings allows you to do a lot of stuff now, right? That would just drive, further value for both the presenters and the sponsors in terms of short video clips or transcripts or all that kind of wonderful things. So, yeah, those kind of were my top level thoughts, and I'll throw it back to you, Steve, so you can pick on someone else.
Yeah, Roberta just made a comment. Some of us from other countries could also participate.
Yeah, that's true. Broader participation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, thanks, Kevin. That was excellent. And Dave Clardy, let me pick on you next, if that's all right.
Well, that was me, Eric. Mentioned change is good. I like it every year when so many of the conferences I attend are in different locations. It just to change up. Even internally, we pick different venues every year. But as you said, it's been a great venue for 20 plus years, and I, for one, Verve and I, with analyst relations, we looked at our Apple Watches and we were logging between 7 and 8 miles a day, walking between the suite and doing private demos down on the floor. It was like, okay, we're going to blow these watches up and our rings are going to, but I for one think it is definitely more analysts and consultants attending, and it would help me justify the cost through our internal marketing and budget if they knew that more customers attend. I think we've seen a downturn in those customers, as Kevin said, over the years. And it's just because of the media has changed the way we consume and educate ourselves. But it's definitely, you have to be there. You know, it's one of those events. I've always said to our internal leadership, if you're not there, you're not relevant at Enterprise Connect. And I continue to say that. I, for one, yeah, I'm hoarse. I think you were the last person I saw before I jumped in my Uber on my way to the airport, Eric.
That's right.
And for me personally, it's as a 30-year veteran of Mitel, it's the only time of the year for the last 2 years I've gotten to work with my son and see him in action, and not two of us ever get a chance to see that. So it's always a proud moment when we can see our siblings thrive and become a technology professional. So for me, the highlight of the was you know, all the hybrid motion that we have in play with Zoom and with other vendors, and that is our go-to-market motion for the next 5 years. Is going to be that hybrid cloud and on-premise. And I think, Kevin, again, I applaud you. You're spot on, you know, because, you know, mission critical companies are still very hesitant to put their toe even in the water for cloud-based solutions, especially with all the major outages that have occurred in the last 18 months. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Steve. And thanks, Eric. I applaud you for changing venues.
Can I just jump in, Steve, and mention?
Yeah, please.
Kevin's your point on everybody's point on customers, enterprise is spot on. We started on one of the advantages of being now part of a very, very large media and events company is we have lots of tools that come to our disposal. The disadvantage is we can't always move as quickly on them as we want. So very late in the cycle, like literally February, we were able to plug into a hosted buyer system that that Informa has for, I don't know if it's all of its events, but at least all in our group. And that wasn't really enough time to get it off the ground, but that's it's a priority for next year for just the reason that Kevin said. I think we're aware that we need to help our audience afford to come. And I think on the sponsor side, what we heard from some of the sponsors, you know, I think specifically, and Dave, you kind of touched on it. It's, you know, that's for the event professionals within the sponsoring companies, you know, that's kind of often among their KPIs is how many meetings did you get. So if we can get them a guaranteed number of meetings, that's, you know, that's a huge win for them. And hosted buyer, I mean, you probably all know what that is, but basically we fund or comp some element of the attendees travel, we qualify them, and then a sponsor, you know, pays in to help defray the costs. So, you know, we haven't come up with the model we're going to go out with in terms of what do we cover and what do we charge the sponsors and that sort of thing. But it is definitely going to happen in the next event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just a footnote there. I really enjoyed, you know, your end user keynotes and the panels that you had. I was actually host to two of the panels. We had a separate summit on Monday with two users group, First Citizens Bank as well as University of Central Florida. And it was great. I actually had a fake.
Your audio cut out.
Are you?
Okay.
Steve, we can't hear you.
I had to
Oh, you
just
know
turn
why?
back the fucking
Accidentally
fireside
muted it,
chat
sorry.
sound down for a second because I don't want to hear it.
You picked up something and then you went mute.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry. There was a mute button on the microphone that I accidentally hit. all this technology, you know. But anyway, no, they were great. We had some good attendance, and the interaction, you know, between the two groups was great, and it went the full 45 minutes for each. And everybody, you know, always the sign is how many people leave in the middle of the session. We had hardly anybody leave, so that was again another good sign. So it was very interactive, had a lot of good time, and you know, for people who are on the end user side or typically don't present a lot, you could tell they were a little bit nervous. But when we got interactive, you know, they were in their zone, so to speak. So yeah, it worked very well. Thanks. So Vern Fernandez, let me pick on you. I mean, I saw you, I waved to you at lunch. That was as far as we got. But
I know.
yeah, what were some of your experiences, Vern?
So, one, I appreciated Eric for throwing the show, and I love the move to Vegas. I will say that there's some things to think about when we do that. Is that, like, for instance, I'm going to see Customer Contact Week. That's also in Vegas. I'm also going to the Call and Contact Center Expo. That's also in Vegas. So to be able to offer something different than some of these folks are offering is going to be key. There's also a lot of SKOs for some of the vendor alliance partners as well that end up being there too. So, and one thing that I would compare Enterprise Connect to is when I go to some of these alliance kind of, you know, like if I go to a Genesis show or something like that, or an Avaya show, these are people that all kind of know each other, have worked together, have helped each other in the chat rooms and all that kind of stuff. So there's that automatic rapport that you get going to an alliance partners thing, right? And so if we can kind of recreate that at Enterprise Connect, that kind of feeling that the users of all the alliance partners can come together and gather and share tips and tricks and all that kind of thing. You know, I went to Beth's party for Genesis, which is great because a lot of the consultants were there. You know, I went to Varen's party as well at Enterprise Connect. That was great to see and talk to some customers there. I think those are intentionally there for people to socialize, but I also think being able to share in those cases with kind of the vendor specific areas of what they're going through. For me as a person at Jabra that literally plugs into everybody, it's hard for me to go to every alliance partner's, party, because there's so many to track, right? That's something that I could use, and I think that's something that the users could use as well, and end users in coming for that camaraderie at an Enterprise Connect, because there's definitely that warm feeling when I go to those types of events. Whereas Enterprise Connect, it's kind of by nature of it, it's different populations, right? So I would suggest that. Outside of that, we're super happy at Jabra. We won an award, so thanks, Eric, for best audio video for a company that didn't really have a camera 6 years ago. It was nice to be in that spot. But that would be my feedback in going to Vegas, is that there's a lot of things that happen in Vegas, right? So.
And just an ad, Vern, and everybody who might be going to CCW, I know last year CCW was at this Caesars Forum venue, and so if it's back there again this year and you're going, that's going to be the Enterprise Connect venue. So I went to CCW last year, and it had a very good impression of the venue. So you'll see it there.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. So Vern, just personally, what were some of your hot topics that you attended, or what were some of your favorite takeaways?
For what I am doing in terms of my role at Jabra, I'm meeting with a lot of the alliance partners to see how we can kind of help with them. And one of the themes that I see across is because everybody's talking about AI, that a lot of it depends on data and how clean the data is, and how they need it to look from us, right? So I'm very focused on that topic alone, that there's some key things that AI is going to do. A lot of ideas are out there. But we kind of take a really neutral approach in terms of what are the ultimate elements that you need for all that to work. And so my conversations are around what kind of voice and video data do you need to make that happen? right? And that pertains to every alliance partner, that pertains to every customer. And those are kind of the conversations that I tend to have at events like this, where it almost doesn't matter what's going to happen to us as the endpoint, right? But we care about being part of that conversation, right? So I would say that the hot topic for us is whether or not people see us as relevant, right? And what parts of technology see us is relevant when it comes to AI. I'm not talking just about endpoints, but I'm talking about, all the different parts that will make that happen. And I met with Microsoft, I met with Zoom, and I met with a few other customers as well. Many of them are saying some of the same things that I think Eric had said, and Kevin, that people are tiptoeing into it. There's a lot of moving parts to it. We don't know which ones are going to be prioritized. They have problems measuring ROI and what that actually looks like to them. They have problems coming up with internal teams to figure that out. Is it a cross section of people across the enterprise that's on that AI team, or is it specific to IT? When we talk to customers, we see that as well as how do we get people to think commonly about AI? It's hard enough for them to think about a CRM, right? If I compare, because you have to change the way that an enterprise thinks. And it's hard enough just to do that for CRM work, right? So for them to do that for AI is, I think, a challenge that we're seeing quite a bit when we talk with customers. People have no clue where to start. And I did talk to a few of the consultants here where I see some of the consultants teaming up here, even within SCTC, forming assessment groups, right? Of how to assess AI readiness. And I do think that that's important for this particular group to provide to the industry is where to begin, how to assess. So that's a common theme.
Yeah, well said, Vern. I failed to mention at the beginning, there is a fairly new view on Zoom. It's called multi-speaker. If you go to the top view and put multi-speaker, it's a bit more immersive, a bit more real time. I'm in there right now. I'm really enjoying it. So Blair Pleasant, let me pick on you. So what were some of your takeaways? What were some of your personal highlights there, Blair?
Oh, hi. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to be on screen. As an analyst, I think I attended 4 sessions, the opening ones on Monday, and then I went to AWS's keynote because they didn't do an analyst briefing. So many of the vendors do analyst briefings ahead of time, so we know what they're going to be talking about at the keynote, so I don't have to go to their keynote. So as an analyst, we're in high demand, and I just wrote in this article that Kevin's going to be posting hopefully soon, that I think I attended, 20 one-on-ones, 8 breakfast meeting, dinner meetings, receptions, whatever. And I was on the show floor maybe 15 minutes. And that's what I really miss. There were so many vendors I would have liked to have seen on the show floor, and I just didn't have time for that because I had so many one-on-one meetings. And every year I say I'm going to, plan it differently and schedule myself better, and I'm still waiting for the AI to do that and get it in the right time zone. But I do have to say, and Eric, I mentioned this to you in my email, the session that I did on retooling your teams and users for AI was really, people really appreciated that, because I think, Vern, to your point, people don't know where to start, and they don't know how to get the skills, and do we get it internally, or the third parties we should work with? So I think having more, so in our world, because we're dealing with vendors who are so far out there doing all this stuff, and we're talking to leading edge customers that we assume everyone knows what they're doing and they're getting started, but so many of them don't know where to start. So I think more sessions on, okay, your CEO is saying we're going to do AI, but what, how do we start? I think anything we can do as far as what applications and use cases, how your vendor partner can help, how your VAR partner can help, who to go to. And then there are third parties like that, Miratech. So I think highlighting, who to talk to get started. So I think we're getting over our skis, as the expression goes, as far as, deploying all this, high-end stuff, but again, people don't know where to start. And I think if we could focus on that, maybe we would get more end users who, you know they need to do it, but don't know how.
Well, thanks, Blair.
I want to add
Go-
real quick to that, Blair, because one thing that we're seeing is, how do I involve Gen Z in this? How do I involve the digital native into my AI story in my company? I think that's a huge topic that people are trying to wrestle with, because Gen Z is typically lower on the totem pole in a company, but they're probably the biggest resource to making change happen.
So that's a really great point. But I think also looking at the other end of the spectrum, people like me who haven't retired yet, so we have to think about, the older
Bridging the
people who
gap.
might, the older people who
Yeah.
might be more resistant to it. And then all the people who are afraid it's going to take their jobs.
Yeah.
That's a big thing I hear. It's, if I use AI, is it going to take my job away? Or am I training, this AI to take my job?
Yeah.
So that's another thing, overcoming the fear. AI is there to help you not to take your job this week anyway.
Yeah, these are all the dynamics that go into that. So Rick Hathaway, what were some of your impressions there, and what were some of your takeaways? Rick, you there?
Yeah, I just had to get it off mute. I'm in a noisy place, so I'm spending most of my
Okay,
time
that's
on
fine.
mute. What I attended most of the time was sessions related to AI, but not AI itself. How AI is going to be deployed, and the necessary precautions that you need to take. I spent a lot of time in the military, and they had very distinct categories, classifications of data. AI is going to use every bit of data it can get its hands on. So our customers, our developers, really paying attention to taking their entire database and creating levels of access for different applications, or are they just giving each AI application access to everything? That's a very dangerous attitude to take if that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I didn't hear from too many vendors that I talked to that they're doing that stratification of the data to make sure that you're not inadvertently giving access to data of an AI application that you may not want. You may not want that application to have. Just another step in the planning cycle of how to deploy it.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, the rest of it, again, I spent most of my time on the trade show floors. I attended probably 5 or 6 sessions, mostly with STC speakers, SCTC speakers. The keynotes, I did a few of those, but I don't really get a lot out of I get more out of the trade show floor than I do the actual keynotes.
Yeah, well, you can dive deeper in one-on-ones. Yeah, I find that too, Rick. That's a great
you
point.
can. Sometimes the keynotes are just enough to make you curious and make you want to go down on the trade show floor, and then again, get elbow deep in, whatever application or whatever technology that they were briefing on.
Exactly.
Good show. Looking forward to next year.
Thank you, Rick.
Can I add something that I just thought
Sure,
of?
Blair.
So one comment, and this was also on a thread on LinkedIn, is about the canned demos on the show floor. There was a lot of comment about that. Maybe we could have, a live demo bake-off or something, or, try to encourage, more live demos. And I know it's really hard, especially with, internet issues and stuff, but that was a comment that people were like, this is canned, prepared, and I didn't get as much out of it because I don't know what's real and what isn't real.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I heard that from a couple of people. Agreed, Blair. Thanks. So Art Yanomoto, you've been very quiet unusually because I haven't called on you yet. So what were some of your takeaways, Art, and what were some of your reflections there?
In a way, I'm going to miss Orlando, but Las Vegas is closer, so that's nice. And One thing I was asking about was the difference between predictive AI and generative AI. Everyone talks about generative AI, but I haven't heard a lot about predictive AI. But when I talk to some of the vendors, they do say that they are working on predictive AI services and products. And so I'd like to see more in that particular area. So anyway, that was one takeaway I had from that. The other takeaway was just being out of the office and being able to, during the keynote sessions, I tend to listen, but also let my mind wander. And so I was taking a lot of notes, not about the keynotes, but of other things. So I find the conference to be very helpful from that perspective, to be able to be in an environment that's work related, but not so focused, and hearing various inputs coming in and being on the floor and having time to kind of connect the dots, so to speak. So that I find that to be very helpful. I had like 4 or 5 specific takeaways that I took away, not specifically Enterprise Connect related, but things for my business.
Well said, Art. Well said. Beth Kirschenberg, I saw you a lot at Enterprise Connect. So maybe you can share some of your thoughts there.
Hi, yeah, it was good to see you. Yeah, I have to ring a lot of what others have said around. I know that our team is looking for more end users to attend, and we're looking forward to that happening. So thank you, Eric, for your efforts there. We had a lot of really good one-on-ones and one-on a few conversations with consultants, a lot from the SCTC, and then some analysts. So for us, that's my team. That's what we focus on, is the analyst relations and the consultant relations. And to what Vern was talking about, yeah, we have the happy hour so that there is a place for consultants to come and just kind of relax, but also have some of our subject matter experts and some other partners there to answer questions in a very informal way. So we're very happy to have that time and that space, and we're trying to make more space for consultants to network with each other in different environments in different ways on an ongoing basis. As far as the show floor, for us, it was a good show. It wasn't stellar in terms of KPIs of end users, but it was a very good show. We got to actually show reality. A lot of what was asked was around our journey management tools. So we did do a lot of demos on the journey management. And I think one of the highlights of my week, Steve was there. We got to have a customer visit at Lighthouse Works, which was really amazing to learn what they do and how they support a community of people with vision impairments, and also help the greater community through business solutions. And then because they have those employees, they've actually developed a new application to help them and to help others. So they're actually selling one of their applications to help people who are vision impaired with contact center type integration. And that was a really great opportunity. So I'm glad we took advantage of that before we're going off to Vegas for that. But my key takeaways are, I had having those one-on-one conversations and just being able to talk with people and learn what people are working on and what questions are really out there. The AI, AI is everywhere, but to Art's point and to some other people's points, and Rick's point is, kind of compliance and understanding when and where it makes sense, and what's real versus what's kind of, thought of. And then the last thing, of course, is our partners. We are very happy to have partners and keep expanding that to optimize for all of our customers, as so that we can do better for them and give them the right tools and the right options and the right opportunities.
Well, thanks, Beth. I appreciate that. And yeah, I had no idea it was Women's History Month. So thanks for the reminder on your background.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, and the
Until
visit
the end
to
of March.
and the visit to Lighthouse Works was excellent. Yeah, I learned a lot of things about blind people that I had no idea, and I was shocked to find out that the minority of the population knows how to use Braille. They have to use other tools outside of Braille just to engage, and have purpose in their life, which was fascinating. So thanks for that. Ken
Yeah.
Kravitz, real quick, any thoughts?
Thanks, Steve. Well, number one is it's always a great opportunity to sort of go to a different environment and see old friends, and new friends. So that, to me, that's always the highlight. But overall, I thought it was a very good show. It definitely felt smaller. People have talked about the um, diminishing number of end users, and I think, and I forget who had said so, but that the nature of gathering information has changed. So people spending X amount of dollars to come to an event is definitely changing. But in terms of the vendors, I thought it was good. There was a lot of variety there, and I think we got a chance to see not only those that are sort of on the AI bandwagon, but a lot of other companies. Because keep in mind, most consultants tend to deal with issues other than AI. AI is a piece of it, but if we're solving problems, there's a lot of things that are legacy things that have been a problem for as long as most of us have done this, and they're still not solved. So having a variety of other solutions out there was definitely helpful. And aside from that, I enjoyed the gatherings. As I said, I definitely enjoyed seeing the people. And I think, because the world, the industry, and the technology are all going through shifts, we are definitely going to see this continuing to transform itself over the next few years. And we'll see in Las Vegas what has come up next.
Yeah, and one of my thoughts was, Eric, and to your point about discounting earlier, I'm wondering, since COVID, because I think everyone is affected. I've seen this at other trade shows too, but are companies now, holding back on travel, for their end users themselves? That could be one of the factors there. So, Fran, last but not least.
I just put a note in the chat to Eric. We're talking about using AI and how many people will actually watch all those recordings. What if we did the AI summaries for the sessions and you could charge people that did not attend the live event? So you could leverage the technology, and we use it for Zoom meetings a lot, and it comes out pretty well. So maybe a thought there. And then just to end this all, it sounds like Enterprise Connect keeps getting warmer. We started in Crystal City, we went to Washington, D.C., went south to Orlando, and now we're going to Vegas. So where next? Oh my gosh, it keeps getting warmer.
I don't have to bring my coat next year. See that?
There you go.
There's always Hawaii.
Yeah.
It's always great to see everybody in person. Thanks so much.
Did I miss anybody that attended? Okay, so Eric, any closing thoughts there on your end?
No, just I really appreciate everybody sharing their thoughts with me, and of course, being a part of the community that goes to Enterprise Connect. This is all super helpful, and I'd ask if I can either reach out to you, or if you reach out to me as the year goes on, and there's we're starting the planning super early, because this is there's a lot of logistics to move in this venue. So would love to just kind of keep the conversation going and the ideas flowing.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks everybody for attending today. Thanks everybody for contributing. And Eric, thanks for being featured today. and thanks for attending. I know that, you probably are still exhausted and recovering from, all this planning and all this attending. And yeah, I it sounds crazy, but I actually miss, being up at 6 and, being asleep at, midnight or later. Well, thanks,
you.
everybody, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye
everyone.
now.
Everybody.
Thanks, everyone.